Hello, it's Scott Manley here with episode 73 of Interstellar Quest, and Sean Kerman has parked his rover next to this strange structure on the surface of Duna. He soldiers on through his hunger. He was told that the food would not last for such a long drive, but he really wanted to be one of those Kerbals to do something even more magnificent, something above and beyond the line of duty. So he decided to drive all the way around Duna, despite barely having enough food to get him less than a fraction of the way around. But he has found this object, and something mysterious makes him want to take a closer look. From orbit, it resembles some sort of interesting structure, perhaps with a couple of small hills on it, but its sheer sides make it feel that it must be something constructed by an intelligence. So he fires up his rocket pack, ascends ever so carefully, and attempts to gingerly step onto the top of this thing to collect some data. And he gets to it, but, well, something doesn't quite feel right here. Sure, the ground beneath his feet feels substantial enough, but he feels like he's being watched. Moreover, he's pretty sure that he's not actually touching the object in question. Definitely seems to be something to do with the collision foo. Perhaps this is made of the same material that the rectenas, the power transmitters, are made of. Yes, there he does. He can see almost below him, but never to be perturbed, he takes a surface sample. It appears this soil could be used for snack production, possibly after several centuries of carbon forming. From here, he can also take an EVA report. You've proven the alien conspiracy theorists wrong while standing on top of a giant face-like structure. Go figure. Well, regardless, I think it's important that he mark this occasion, put it on the map, so to speak, even if the flag isn't actually on the map. It's kind of floating above it. Something isn't quite right here. That's what Sean thinks, with his wonderfully strong analytical mind. I'm telling you that the boys back in the lab are gonna love this. Although I can say with some certainty that they are unlikely to agree on this. Yes, Sean has discovered something important, perhaps something that frames their position in the universe. So he kind of walks off this, wait a second, this mysterious force. You know what? I think that perhaps this object is out of phase with reality. Perhaps there is some strong subspace dimensional warping field here, where the object appears to be in one location, but its physical presence is felt in another. Perhaps the boys back in the lab can learn to exploit this for profit or space travel, or both. Who knows? Definitely this object is full of mysteries, full of science, and perhaps its presence will rekindle the debate as to whether Kerbals really are alone in the universe. Meanwhile, over on the moon, the Outland is also on a mission to look at another constructed object, another object that stands out on the surface. Only we know the origin of this one. We're trying to get to our rover that we launched to the moon, about, a while back, months ago. I'm just going to very carefully touch down on the surface here and then send a Kerbal over. The land near the rover is far too steep to land on safely, so we're going to carefully touch this down and try not to get distracted by the planet Kerbin hanging beautifully on the horizon there. And nope, come on, fire your engines. Okay, that was rather stressful. Okay, let's try turning that thing. Let's try going around for another pass. What do they say? Take off, go around, toga. Except there's no around really. Around works when you're flying an aircraft and you have to actually turn. We can just point the spacecraft in the opposite direction. This thing has a little more inertia than I like, but I think we're okay. Okay, now Sidzi, be so ever so careful and try to deposit this thing on the surface once more without it falling over this time, because really if it falls over, we're going to have to send a rescue mission. And to be honest, you've been here 62 days. Actually, honestly, you've been here 62 days. I think it's high time that we sent a relief mission. So, yeah, actually, I vow now to send a relief mission. You guys can come home and do other stuff as long as you land this thing. If not, well, I guess we will have to send a rescue mission. I don't know. I think it's just time. Okay, ever so carefully here. Do this because we are on a slope. We're going to drop down ever so carefully. You see, when you touch the surface, right, you have to keep the thing vertically up and down, otherwise you will pick up lateral velocity. But if you touch the surface and the surface isn't quite straight, then of course you'll start to rotate, and there's a good chance that you will pick up enough momentum to completely flip this thing. But just touching, and we're down safely. Brilliant. Okay, well, we can start doing some more research here. Let's grab a surface sample. The ground appears to be made of very small, sharp, abrasive pieces of grey rock. It would probably be best if you didn't rub your spacesuit in it. As you step off your lander, saying the usual dramatic speech, Mission Control come on, what did Mission Control say? Mission Control tells you to cut the chatter and get on towards back to the all-important sample taking, which we've already done. So yeah, we can of course plant a flag to memorialise this visit to the Midlands, which would otherwise be, well, it's interesting, but... And then Sidzi takes a quick walk over to this relic of an earlier time in the space race. I have to say, it's surprisingly big, this creation, this rover. Unfortunately, if you remember, it was damaged due to jumping off a cliff, more or less. But it's looking pretty good, actually. And it's still functioning. It's just a shame that its scientific instruments are no longer that potent compared to what I've brought with me. Still, it is, historically interesting, and we should probably, put a flag down here just to commemorate this momentous occasion. The old and the new coming together in the name of science. Okay, what are we going to do? Site name is going to be, I think we'll say that this is like historic, but obsolete. There would seem to be an appropriate name for this, obsolete. And more than ever, this really illustrates that, we have built our way to this. We are standing on the shoulder of giants. I mean, not literally. I mean, the moon isn't actually a giant. It's just a moon. In fact, it's quite small. But look, there we go. This will make that would make a beautiful postcard, wouldn't it? Look at that there. He's just going to stand there and pose for all the cameras that aren't around. Take your screenshots. So I know that we unlocked the fusion reactors, or the more compact fusion reactor, so I figured that one of the things I would do with it is build a new antimatter retriever plane. This is like the Mark II. It doesn't have that ridiculous fuel line system that clearly was terrible. It has a fusion reactor. It has 4 intakes, and at the front it has a docking port, a shielded docking port, and this thing is generating quite a bit of thrust, considering that it's just doing it through a thermal engine. This thing actually, if I let it, will actually wobble out of shape. There it goes, but I let the brakes off and it starts to accelerate really quickly. And we can more or less, hold on, just pull back, there we go, and straight into a vertical climb. Look at that. This is finally the performance that we are looking for. This is fusion technology, giving Jeb the ride of his life. Well, actually, may not the ride of his life, since he almost crashed at a plane a while back. But this is pretty exceptional. If you remember, the previous nuclear planes barely could get off the ground. This thing can go straight into a vertical climb and continue picking up speed. It's heading upwards towards, it's almost going to be hitting 300 meters per second, and then it'll be passing Mach 1. But I want to kind of talk about the best way to bring this into orbit here. So if we think about Jeb sitting there in the pilot seat, there we are, Mach 1 in a vertical climb. So I want to bring him out of this climb at some point, and the naive way is to go nose down, but the correct way is to imagine that he's going to be pushed into his seat, right? So we flip upside down and then pull up until we are in a horizontal climb. That way Jebediah is only getting positive G's the whole way, and he's a lot happier than, say, somebody that feels like they're being pulled up. You see there, that's pulling about 2 negative G's all the way over that. Okay, so the next phase is we're now about 14 kilometers up. We're going to sit in a horizontal mode until we get up close to the limit at which our air intakes will be overheating our engines, right? So we get up to just over 1 kilometer per second, right? We get a lot of heating and stuff going on. And now we're getting close, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull into a steep climb, and the idea is we're going to convert all that horizontal velocity into vertical velocity. So watch, my vertical speed is increasing very rapidly. Of course, as soon as we start to do this, our thrust is going to drop off precipitously, and at some point we're going to switch over to the internal fuel. But the idea being that by converting our horizontal speed into vertical speed, we're now on a ballistic trajectory, which is going to give us about a minute 20 to actually get ourselves up towards orbital velocity. And of course from there, it's actually pretty easy. You see, we just more or less follow the ballistic arc and try to keep firing our engines roughly along the prograde vector. I'm burning a little high because I don't think I have quite enough time to apoapse. But the apoapse is continuing to rise. Now, if you do this via other methods, you can actually find that you end up burning a lot more of the liquid fuel. This is just a really nice way because it makes sure that you're getting as much vertical velocity as possible, just using those wings to turn you over. And yeah, we get up into a stable orbit, and of course the next place we're going to go is to the antimatter harvesting farm, which I have accidentally rechristened the Marco Ramius Antimatter Farm. Accidentally, I say, because Marco should be spelt with a K. I have no idea what I was thinking, but clearly my head was not looking at Wikipedia. Anyway, we need to dock with this thing now, so we get ourselves into position, and it's pretty easy to do so. Of course, then we're just going to turn the spacecraft around, open our docking shield, take control of that. We have our docking alignment marker, and because we have this nice UI, of course, we can actually dock from inside the cockpit, which is it's a nice way to do things. It gets you the real experience, because of course the real experience would actually have, a reasonable docking UI. So yeah, I'm just using the RCS fuel that comes with the cockpit, which means I'm doing this very slowly and carefully. I do kind of like the look of this thing with the heat sinks, the heat radiators, and the solar panels sticking out like that. It kind of looks like some crazy, alien spaceship or something. But yeah, we just approach this and let our velocity carry us in. We just are making minor corrections here and there as we move towards it. I did this very, very slowly. You see my velocity was like 0.14 meters per second, which is kind of low for my docking. But regardless, it looks pretty good. There we go. We double click on the cockpit to look out the window, make some last minute corrections, and docked to the Marco Ramius, collecting all its antimatter and stuffing it in my tanks so we can bring it home and build even more amazing things with antimatter. Actually, we only have about 73 milligrams on the station right now, so I think we're going to need to expand this a little more, but I kind of want to go over and take a look at this other spacecraft. Now, people have been pointing out, oh my god, you're building planes all the time. And the reason I've been building planes all the time is a lot of this exotic high-tech propulsion doesn't really have the thrust-to-weight ratio to go straight into a vertical launch. Now I have this antimatter-induced fusion reactor, and with enough air intakes, I am actually able to lift straight off the pad. So this is a new spacecraft I'm designing. It's supposed to go to the moon or to Minmus and more or less ferry crew. It's not the smallest thing. There is a version I have which will fit 4 crew in it, and there's a version which will actually fit 8. But anyway, we go straight up and then immediately switch over into like a 45-degree climb, because of course horizontal velocity is going to be very important in getting to orbit. We can't go faster than 1000 simply because we don't have the pre-coolers on this. We could put pre-coolers on, but it added a bunch of mass that I didn't want. Instead, the ascent profile is more or less picked so that we won't exceed our velocity limits, and we will switch over to our internal methalox fuel. And what I'm waiting for is my vertical speed to start falling, so let's switch over to methalox. Methalox is pushing us forward at 4G. Brilliant. Part of the reason for the design, incidentally, is because the only fuel tanks I have that take methalox is that 2.5 meter tank at the front. So I have the reactor in line with the fuel tank and the engine obviously underneath. And to make it short enough that I can land it on the moon, I've instead wrapped all the other materials, or all the other parts, around this core. And that will give it a wide base and therefore make it easier to land. Where is that moon? Ah, there it is. Okay, so we're just going to point the spacecraft along the horizon. I am not bothering with maneuver nodes because I don't think I really need them. It's pretty easy to get to the moon. And this thing has so much delta V, it's not like I need to worry about wasting all my fuel. Look at that, 5 Gs this is accelerating at now. Liquid methane is burning away pretty quickly though, and I think... And yeah, there we go. Shut that down quickly. We still have fuel and oxidizer left though, so we're doing okay. So now we're going to switch over to the liquid fuel and oxidizer because that will have a higher specific impulse. But before then, let's actually get ourselves set for space. So when you're switching fuel types in space, it is a really good idea to make sure you turn off your engines. There we go. There's our solar panels out. There's our radiators. And yeah, we need to do a little more fuel burning there. Actually, not that there's much burning involved. It's just being heated up by passing it around a fusion core and having it absorb the heat that is being radiated. I'm not even sure how such a technology would actually work, but it's a cool concept nevertheless. And I will happily take its higher specific impulse. Okay, just wait for the encounter and... bingo! Okay, and we're going to actually just smack straight into the moon. That's okay. I will make the correction once I arrive. Okay, well, a bit of a correction has of course happened. I've cut all that out and I'm now falling towards the moon, ready to perform orbital insertion at periaps. The texture of the moon... yeah, this is from the better atmospheres or whatever, version 4. I really should get version 5, but I'm worried about like the other dependencies because I literally have had half a dozen crashes attempting to record this right now. I'm really getting frustrated with the amount of crashes, let me say. I will hopefully... well, it'd be very nice if the 64-bit one becomes more reliable. But I don't know. I think it's just having a lot of mods is going to be bad regardless. Okay, we're getting pretty close. Put ourselves into orbit here. Fire up the engine. It sounds like a jet engine. And people incidentally asked about this. How come your jet engines work with fuel? And the reason is you have to unlock fusion to unlock that behavior in Interstellar mod. But that's me in orbit, and now I need to actually get to my target, which is inconveniently right there. That is going to be like a 45-degree inclination change. I think I can spare the delta V. Anyway, it's time to go. We'll catch up with our crew in the next episode. Until then, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.